welcome back. Once again, adventurers, to Let's Play Chaos Child. And in the last episode, Takuru ran hastily to the roof of Hegio Academy, but this time, Kurusu stood her ground against Serika Noe. In their epic duel. And thus, Takuru was forced to witness them in their conflict, with neither refusing to back down. During the entire fight, the advantage seemed to switch between Serika and Kurusu, and then back and forth. Because as their blades clashed, Kurusu was able to glimpse aspects of Serika Noe's life and feelings, which gave her a slight chance against Serika's own telepathic abilities. Unfortunately, Serika knows things about Nono Kurusu that we currently yet do not. She called her a failure, a liar, a fake. But when Takuru intervened, Serika was emotionally torn asunder, confused as to why Takuru would protect Kurusu's life. But now, the time has finally come to finally hear some answers from Kurusu herself. When I'd finished hearing the truth from her, I looked out at the sky in silent shock. I felt helpless, like the ground beneath me had crumbled and I was falling into hell, or something worse. The strength left my body and I felt my knees on the hard concrete. Kurusu had told me everything. Well, hopefully you'll share this information. It's going to be kind of difficult being left in the lurch. She just gave me the objective facts, without adding any of her own opinions in. She told me the truth behind the return of the new generation madness. It was unbelievable. Serika Noe was behind it all. But she wasn't the only one. For if Kurusu did in fact see everything that Serika Noe was hiding in their epic clash, then she would have known that Serika was collaborating with somebody else. Somebody who Nono Kurusu is all too familiar with, or believed she was. And all of it was being done for my sake. Just like the ridiculous theory I'd come up with. It was a game, and I was the player. Now there's worse to come. Much worse.
Takuru.
だってそうだろ。そんなのデタラメだ。
Unfortunately, it is the truth.
なんで尾上がそんなことしなきゃならないんだ。どうして尾上にそんなことができる。
Because she is a real booted existence.
あいつは僕とずっと一緒だったんだ。そばにいてほしいときはいつだって一緒にいてくれたんだ。
And you never thought that strange.
それなのに。
さっきも言ったわ。 それだからこそよ。
Kurusu spoke. Her face was filled with sorrow.
セリカはいつもあなたと一緒だった。だからこそ、タクル、あなたのために。
僕のために。
Because the return of the new generation, as Takuru Miyashiro had said back when this all began, was his big chance, his big scoop for the Heikyo Academy newspaper club. Serika had committed all those murders for me. To make you out to be the hero of your own story. She killed all those people, and for me. She killed Yui for me. For me. For...
信じられない気持ち、わかるわ。信じたくないのもわかる。私もそうだったから。
And there's more where that came from, Kurusu. Judging by her behavior, it's hard to tell whether or not she did glimpse Serika's dealings with Wataru Sakuma.
でも、真実だったの。
Of course, I knew that Kurusu wouldn't tell me this as a joke. And I'd seen how Serika had acted a moment ago. Serika had intended to kill Kurusu. But if all that were true...
それじゃあ、僕のせいってことじゃないか。
And a part of me actually does understand somewhat Serika's motivations in all this, tragic as they are. Think back to 6 years ago, shortly after Takuru was adopted. When he'd managed to figure out that his parents were murdered rather than died in the earthquake, although he hasn't yet figured out that it was his own doing that led to that particular incident. But the fact that Kurusu and the others at Aoba Dorm had deliberately kept this information from him, even though they explicitly said no secrets in this house. Takuru's frustrations led him to depart Aoba Dorm and live alone in an RV trailer at Miyashita Park. And Serika Noe used Takuru's roiling emotions as motivation for this. Yui's death, all the deaths, even the fact that Serika had killed them.
全部、何もかも、すべて、僕のせいってことじゃないか。
All this just for Serika Noe to craft Takuru Miyashiro as the ultimate right-sider, who could do no wrong.
タクル。
I felt something soft surrounding me as I knelt on the ground.
ダメ、タクル。
クルス、
そんな風に考えちゃダメ。自分を責めてはダメ。
Indeed. You might have brought Serika Noe into existence, but her actions are her own. After all, she has proven that she isn't entirely as bound to you as she would have you believe. Or have herself believe, for that matter. There was a gentle smell, like old memories, Kurusu's smell.
だってわかるはずないもの。自分のせいでこんなことが起きるなんて。
けど
あなたはあの地震の時にちょっと考えてしまっただけ。その気持ちを勝手に読み取られて勝手に暴走されてしまった。それだけなの。
No, Serika didn't ask. But Takuru did. When he rebooted her into existence. When he made the wish that would change the world. And tragically erase his own parents in the process.
だからあなたは悪くない。
And yet he is responsible.
ゆいだってあなたのこと恨んでなんかいないわ。絶対に。
Her words were as soft as a whisper, but they were strong.
僕はクルスにも謝らなきゃいけない。
謝る？
全部クルスの言う通りだった。最初に事件を追うなって言われた時もその通りにしておけばよかった。
Unfortunately, Takuru was too interested in both the Return of the New Generation Madness and the original New Generation Madness cases, for that matter, without which all of this would never have happened.
犯人だって南沢千里さんじゃなかった。それなのに僕はクルスの大切な静かに眠ってる友達まであんな風に言ってクルスの心傷つけて。
We were misled, however. Riko Haida did have Senri Minamizawa's ID card that Kurusu herself had placed beneath the earthquake memorial.
いいの。気にしないで。
ありがとう。
But that's water under the bridge now. Kurusu held me close until I was able to think clearly again.
もう大丈夫？
A little bit better, I suppose. But that begs the question of where we go now, because the road ahead of us has changed.
ああ、
To be honest, I wasn't anything close to okay, but I couldn't sit up here on the roof forever. I stood up and looked around. The whole place was quiet, as if the battle had never happened. Except, of course, for the obvious bloodstains. And my disorder disappeared too.
クルス、もう一つだけ聞いてもいいかな。どうして 今まで教えてくれなかったんだ。
She must have known what I was going to say before I asked. Her face twisted in sorrow. But I had to ask.
自分がギガロマニアックスだってこと。
それはその。
She looked down a little, and when she looked up again, there was something like resolve in her eyes.
だって人に言いふらすようなことじゃないわ。みんな嫌がるだろうし、タクルだって。
It's a little late for that now, though. It would upset everyone. Why? What was her power?
嫌がったりしないよ。僕自身もギガロマニアックスだし。教えてくれないか？どんな能力なのか。
言わなきゃダメかな。
You did promise.
まだ何が起こるかわからないんだ。どんなことでも知っておきたい。
We're going to need those answers if we're to close this case properly, Kurusu. Kurusu hesitated for a moment, but finally spoke.
私のはその有村さんと同じなの。
I wonder if that's the truth. We'd know if Hanai herself was actually here.
有村と同じ？
ええ。人の言うことが嘘か本当かわかるのよ。最初にセリカが変だって思ったのもこの能力のおかげだし。
Is that really true, though? Still many unknowns.
そうだったのか。
I mean, to be fair, there is actually nothing that prohibits Gigalomaniacs from having the same kind of power. But after everything we've been through, this is a little too convenient for my liking there, Kurusu. I really need Hanai to corroborate her story. Or not.
でも有村さんも言ってなかった？そんなにいいものじゃないって。
どうだったかな。
I remember. Because for Hanai Arimura, it was hard knowing that almost everyone around you deliberately obfuscated the truth in some shape or form.
人の言葉の裏表なんて知りたくないことばかり。それにこんな能力を持ってるって知られたらみんな私を避けようとするわ。
That's exactly what happened to Hanai. I remember that Arimura had been reluctant to show off her power too. It was probably better not to know what people were really thinking when they spoke, and she probably wouldn't want people avoiding her. That's not quite how Hinai's power actually works. She just gets a certain inkling, like a color or a sensation, that pretty much tells her that what people are saying is a lie or not. Doesn't really inform her as to their true intentions. Because currently only Serika has that ability.
私の場合、有村さんほど正確じゃないんだけどね。正解率 60% といったところかな。
So you say. That finally explains something. Why Serika had called Kurusu a fake. Sorry about that, adventurers. Had a very rough cough. But back to the moment at hand, I don't think it does. She must have been saying that she just had a bootleg copy of Arimura's power. I wonder about that. An illegally made and often inferior copy of an existing product.
Ne, Takuru. 私たち、これからどうすればいいのかしら。
That's precisely what we're trying to figure out. What could we do now that we knew the truth? We only know part of the truth. Not the whole truth. Now that we've lost Yui, Ito, and even Serika. Serika's not dead, she's just our enemy now. And as for Shinji, to be honest, my head was a mess, and I couldn't think straight. There was one thing I could say, and that was...
とにかく、己を何とかしなきゃ。
Yeah, we can't just let Serika be. We have to put an end to our plans one way or another. I couldn't let her kill anyone else. If everything that had happened so far was the result of my wish, then we had to end it here. Because Kurusu was supposed to be the final murder. Because tonight is the night, the 6th anniversary of the 7th murder of the original New Generation Madness. And since Kurusu isn't dead, it stands to reason that Serika and Sakuma will kill a surrogate in her place, just to make it look like the final murder has happened on time. Boy oh boy. If Serika's plan was going to continue, the next murder would happen on November 4th. Today. And her target was probably not Kurusu, the girl who knew too much. I had to protect Kurusu no matter what. I couldn't let Serika commit any more crimes either. A faint vibration pulled me out from the sea of sleep. Who the hell could be calling at this hour? Wait, what time was it? And where was I? Somewhere we really shouldn't be right now. If I could help it. If I could avoid it. But tragically I can't. I remembered everything and was instantly fully awake. If Serika was going to attack Kurusu, it would be on November 4th. Not necessarily. I mean, given what happened to Riko Haida. Yeah. I'd stayed over in Kurusu's room last night to keep her safe. Sakuma was away, tonight of all nights, on some conference or meeting or something. Or something. It was up to me to keep Kurusu safe, but at some point I'd fallen asleep.
そうだ、来るぞ。
She's not here, is she? I leapt up and looked at the bed, but she wasn't there. God damn it. Where did she go? No way. She couldn't have. Just before I raced out of the room to go look, I caught a glimpse of my smartphone screen. The phone was still vibrating. Kunasato? It was rare for her to call me. What had happened? I grabbed my phone with a shaking hand, afraid for what I was about to hear, but we have no choice but to hear it.
もしもし。
My voice was hoarse since I'd just woken up.
眠っていたか。のんきなことだな。
That's, not entirely true. She was as rude as ever, but that's Mio Kunasato for you.
そんなことより何なんです。わざわざ電話なんて。
あいにくだが、細かい前置きをしている状況じゃない。端的に要件だけを言う。昨日、11月4日がどういう日か知っているな。
Only far too well. My heart started to beat faster.
ドキュンパズルですか。
そうだ。予想通り、新たな犠牲者が出た。
It wasn't Kurusu, was it? My heart felt like it was about to stop. But when she told me the victim's name, it was someone I never expected.
11月4日深夜、東京都渋谷区にて惨殺死体が発見された。所持品などを調べた結果、被害者の名前は
Who was it? Who was the surrogate victim?
佐久間渡、児童養護施設青葉寮の経営者だ。
Ah. Well. To begin with, I can't say I'm sorry that he's dead. Because after all, he had assisted Serika Noe in her rather convoluted schemes to entertain Takuru Miyashiro. To the point where he was even complicit in the murder of Yui Tachibana. Sorry, Tachibana. I keep getting those syllables mixed around. But something tells me that in Serika's current state, she might have actually had decided that Sakuma was no longer useful, or decided that she had to kill him. Of course, we know for a fact that Sakuma was, like Suichi Wakui, a member of the Committee of 300, as a low-level scientist. But after the Shibuya earthquake, Sakuma was pretty much operating on his own, trying to experiment on his research on the other Gigalomaniacs through the return of the new generation madness. Of course, since Takuru currently knows none of this, I felt a shock, like someone had pounded a nail into the center of my brain. My ears began to ring, and everything started to feel unreal. Sakuma had been killed. I prayed that this was some kind of nightmare, but I didn't even have the right to escape into my delusions.
父さんはいつ？
ほう、本当かとは聞かないのか。
I would think that you of all people would have no reason to lie or joke about something like this.
こういう場合、普通なら疑ってかかってもおかしくはないと思うが、それとも最初からその可能性があったか。
Well, it wasn't really hard to put two and two together. Although, for different reasons, obviously, with when it comes to Takuru. Since Yui was the sixth victim and Kurusu was the intended seventh, yeah, according to that logic, Takuru wasn't entirely surprised at the fact that Sakuma's name came up in her stead.
いや、今はどうでもいいことだな。一応詳細を教えておいてやる。
お願いします。
死亡推定時刻は11月4日22時半から23時半。
It's possible that they got into an argument. But wait a minute. Sakuma had his mind control device, didn't he? He could have easily used that to influence Serika against her will. Unless, of course, his guard was down. Or at the very least, he had made a very fatal mistake.
死因は鋭い刃物による頸動脈の切断。それもただの一撃で致命傷を与えられていた。防御創や争った形跡もない。にもかかわらず真正面から切りつけられている。
Or maybe Serika murdered him in his sleep.
可能性として考えられるのは3つ。1つ目は加害者と被害者が顔見知りだった。2つ目は加害者が被害者を待ち伏せするなどしてとにかく不意打ちにした。
Those two possibilities are more certainties in my book.
そして3つ目はその合わせ技だな。
Definite certainties. Kurusu's tone was calm and level. She was like a doctor telling the patients the results of an exam, which is a fair enough assessment. But to be honest, I preferred it that way.
私が知っている情報は以上だ。いずれ警察からも連絡があるだろう。そちらで何か心当たりがあれば教えろ。
That, of course, denies Kurusu the knowledge of Sakuma's true nature and intentions directly. So if she wants to know the truth, we're going to have to hear it from Serika's own mouth. When she was done talking, she hung up. But I kept the phone pressed against my ear, barely aware of what I was doing. Sakuma had been killed. It didn't feel real hearing the words, but just like Kunosato had said, there was no point in her lying. And if she was telling the truth, the murderer was probably, no, definitely Serika. But why would Serika kill Sakuma? Again, it's almost certain that they had a falling out, because she needed to finish the string of killings, to keep the game interesting for Takuru, and to keep him being strung along for the ride. Of course, that was probably part of it, but why Sakuma? Oh, Takuru, you will learn soon enough. Had she gone after Sakuma since I was keeping her from getting to Kurusu? No. No, no, no. Now's not the time to be thinking that. Though, as we all know, Wataru Sakuma didn't give a shit about Yui's death, much less Kurusu's. Sakuma was murdered, and I was the reason. I killed Yui, and I killed Sakuma. No, you didn't. That was not your doing. That's right. What about Kurusu? Where is she? I ran into the living room and found her. Oh God. She overheard us.
Kurusu.
She was standing there in shock, holding the phone in her hands. She slowly turned toward me and spoke in a voice that was barely audible. I see how it is. Kunosato may have talked to Takuru, but I'm guessing that Detective Shinjo was the one to relay the news to Kurusu.
Takuru... 父さんが...
We know. Wataru Sakuma is dead. And I wish I could tell you right here and now the kind of man he really was. The miserable, twisted piece of shit that you and everyone else in Aoba Dorm had called father. But you were going to have to figure out that truth for yourself, or get told it from Serika.
Kurusu.
I ran to her and grabbed her before she could hit the ground.
タクル、父さんが死んだって。父さんが。
Unfortunately, at this moment in time, Takuru and Kurusu still believe in the man. God damn it.
知っ
This
てる
is
の？
really,
どうして？
really grating on me.
さっき、久野里さんから連絡が。
No, I can't blame them.
そう。
Not really. Her hands gripped my arm so tightly that it hurt. To be honest, I'd never seen her so weak before. She'd always been strong. But now Yui and Sakuma were dead. And at the hands of a person she thought was her friend.
どうしよう。 タクル。私たちこれからどうすればいい？
I guess the only thing we can do is confront Serika on the 6th of November, when all this culminates in its grand finale.
そうだ、ユートに知らせなきゃ。それからウキちゃんにも、あと警察に行って身元の確認をしてほしいって。学校にも連絡を。それに
落ち着いてクルズ。
Yeah. It's true that we'll need to tell the others, but we can't rush into things ham-fisted. Strangely, it seemed that being in the presence of someone who was more panicky than yourself actually made you calmer. I softly patted her on the head, just like she'd done for me last night.
今はいい。余計なことは考えなくていいから。
Of course, that didn't actually make it better. Without Sakuma, we had all kinds of problems to deal with. Because he was the one in charge of Aoba Clinic and Aoba Dorm. Without him... Yeah, there's no way that this place can stay open and operative without outside assistance. But first we'd have to calm down.
ごめんね、タクル。もう少し経てば元の私に戻るから。だから。
Sure thing. Only then did I finally realize Kurusu probably always forced herself to be strong like this, no matter what happened. She told herself she needed to be tough, no matter what. That she had to be strong to protect Yui and Yuto without me at Aoba Dorm. But I've been selfish and... that's all in the past. It's okay now. I'm here for you. That's probably what I should have said. But all I did was gently rub her back. Though, in the end, that's probably all she needs. The next few days were a blur. As time marches onward. We had to go to the police and ID the body, then get the death certificate. I was surprised at how much work there was for the family of a murder victim to do. That's bureaucracy for you. I was worried that there might not be time to properly mourn, but maybe it was better to be so busy there wasn't time to remember you were sad. Both Kurusu and I were able to forget about things during all that. The problem was Yuto. He'd lost his sister, and now his adoptive father was dead. He was never a strong boy to begin with, so was in pretty bad shape. But Yamazoe was what saved him. She stayed with him the whole time we were running around. Bless your heart, Uki. After the autopsy of Sakuma's body was finished, it was decided that he be cremated. We didn't have the money for a funeral, but a local neighborhood group put together enough money for the cheapest service available. We somehow managed to make it work. A lot of Sakuma's old patients came to pay their respects, never knowing the insane mad scientist that he truly was. And when it was all over, we suddenly found ourselves facing a new problem. Where do we live now?
そんな、私たちに ここを出て行けって言うんですか？
立て続けの不幸の上に追い打ちをかけるような状況になってるんだ。君たちには酷なことだと思うが。
Shinjo had come to visit us that day in Aoba Dorm. He had a bitter look on his face as he spoke.
今回の事件を契機にうちの二課が調べたんだが、どうやら佐久間氏は保険に入っていなかったようでな。
Of course he didn't.
それは、はい、そうです。父さんには何度か言ったんですが、本人が面倒くさがって、まさかこんなことになるとは思っていなかったので。
While it may seem on the surface that Sakuma was a stingy cheapskate, and he most definitely was, in reality, this place was nothing more than his personal experiment laboratory. Nothing more than playing house. He wouldn't have given two shits about insurance if this place went up in flames. I never talked to Sakuma about money. She was the only one in the dorm who knew that.
ここの財布を管理していたのは君か？
Pretty much.
はい。
だったらわかると思うが、経営状態も芳しいとは言えない。むしろ、もともと赤字経営なところに、あちこちに出している不当たりが積もりに積もって、窒息寸前って状態だった。
Yeah. In other words, Sakuma was up to his knees in debt. I knew we weren't rich, but I had no idea it was that bad. And yet Sakuma had taken us in anyway. Only now, when it was too late, that I realized how much he protected us. Sorry, my sarcasm meter can only take so much.
その上、この建物自体も抵当に入っていたようだ。君か宮代君が相続しても構わないが、仮にそうしたところで建物ごと取り上げられた挙句、借金だけが残ることになる。
Yeah, thanks, Sakuma. Thanks for absolutely nothing.
とても賢明な判断とは言えないだろう。
So we're going to have to leave this place either way. In other words, we had no choice but to leave.
ねえ、のの姉ちゃん。
Yuto was standing a little way away from us, looking scared.
どういうこと？僕たちどうなっちゃうの？
First Yui, then Sakuma, and now the dorm.
ユウト。僕たちここを出て行かなきゃいけないの？そんなの嫌だよ。だってここは。
This place may have been built on a lie, but Aoba Dorm was really the only home that Kurusu, Yui, and Yuto had ever known.
ここは僕の家だもん。 僕とお姉ちゃんとお父さんと、それからのの姉ちゃんとタグル兄ちゃんとウキ姉ちゃんと、みんなで暮らした家だもん。
Takuru has already made his peace and said his goodbyes, but for the others, it's not that straightforward.
そんなの僕
And besides, we will have to leave home someday.
ユウトくん。
There's Uki. The other pillar of resilience in a time of crisis. Yamazoe held him gently as he started to cry. Her face was clouded with worry too. I could understand it. She'd finally made it out of that basement and had only just started getting used to a new life, and now this had happened.
でも急にここを出て行けなんて言われても僕たちには他に行くところがありません。
And I'm afraid the RV trailer at Miyashita Park isn't going to cut it. I could go back to the RV I've been living in, but for everyone else, I wouldn't be able to fit everyone there. There was no room in there for 4 people, even if some of them were kids.
それなんだが、別の施設に移るってのが妥当だと思う。
That might be probably for the best.
別の施設
At the very least, we might meet some other people. Of course, if that orphanage is being run by the Committee of 300 and their affiliates and associates, yeah, that would be the worst case scenario.
ただ、これも一つ問題があってだな。例の地震以降、都内の施設はどこも満杯なんだ。全員まとめて同じ場所ってのはどうも難しいらしい。
Yeah. There are a lot of victims over the past 6 years. A lot of ruined and destroyed lives.
それってつまりそれぞれ別の施設にってことですか？
If we can even go to other orphanages.
そういうことになるだろうな。
そんな
Just keeps getting worse. Yuto was the first to speak.
そんなの嫌だよ。ここを出ていくだけじゃなく、みんなとバラバラだなんて。そんなの僕
I gasped a little as I heard the tension in Yuto's voice. I'd never seen him express himself so clearly to an adult. We had pretty much lost everything. That was how serious the prospect of leaving everyone was to him.
私も嫌です。
It would be one thing if Yuto and Uki could stay together. Yamazoe rubbed Yuto's back, speaking in a clearer voice than I'd ever heard from her before.
せっかくみんなと家族になれたのに、そんなのひどいです。
It might have just been a curiosity experiment to Wataru Sakuma. But Kurusu, Yui and Yuto really did believe and live as a family. To them it was real, at least. Shinjo scratched his head, as if he wasn't sure what to say. He was a nice guy, really, that he is. Telling us this stuff wasn't even his job, that just shows how considerate he is. But he was the one who told us, and he was the only person we could complain to.
大丈夫よ、ユウト。それにユキちゃん、私が何とかするから。
Once again, Kurusu playing the role of big sister.
なんとかってどうするつもりだ？
But I think even this might be too much for you, Nanu Kurusu.
それはアルバイトとか。
That's a start, not a solution.
バイトって、これだけの人数が生活できるほど稼げるわけがない。
でも、学校を辞めれば。
No. If you drop out, that won't help matters either. And of course, we'll have Kawahara breathing down our necks.
本気か？
だって他にみんなが一緒にいられる方法なんてないじゃない。私だってみんながバラバラになるなんて嫌なの。大事な家族だもの。
We've already been torn apart. We've been torn apart for 6 years.
僕も働く。ユウト。のの姉ちゃんたちと一緒にいられるんだったら僕も働く。新聞配達とか僕にだってできるし。
Unfortunately, society isn't that straightforward. I never expected Yuto to say something like that. But even with that drive and determination, turning that into reality is easier said than done. And I should know. Well, his life here must have been very important to him. But it was important to me too. And there was something else we had to worry about. Was Serika going to give up now? I think the words fat chance come to mind. She hadn't come after us so far, but there was no guarantee she wouldn't come after Kurusu again. Or maybe Yuto or Uki would be her next target. No. With Sakuma being the 7th murder victim of the return of the new generation madness. Which meant that there was only one thing I could do.
Lifeは僕の蓄えを使えばしばらくは何とかできると思う。
タクル。
It's about the least we can do.
問題は住む場所だ。
But would any place rent a room to a bunch of students who had just lost their father? Sorry, I'm just... Yeah.
まあ、最初からこうなるだろうとは思ってたよ。
There was no other way it was going to work out, under the current circumstances. Shinjo sighed and scratched his head some more, then took out his phone out of his pocket.
何かいい方法があるんですか？
こういうのが得意な知り合いに当たってみる。ああ、君たちもよく知ってる人物だよ。ただ断っとくが、見つかるという保証はないぞ。
I'm pretty sure Katsuko Momose would be glad to help out. But yeah, even she isn't a miracle worker.
ありがとうございます。
But Kurusu is jumping on that thread of hope regardless.
ありがとうございます。
As everyone else. Kurusu, Yuto, and Yamazawa all bowed.
ったく、こういうのは俺の仕事じゃないんだがな。
And yet you're doing it anyway. You didn't have to, but you did. He mumbled to himself as he dialed a number, then put the phone up to his ear.
ああ、もしもし、百瀬さんですか。折り入って話があるんですが、今時間いいですか。
Of course, it's going to be a very big favor.
さあ、ここがあんたたちの部屋よ。
But it seems like Momose has pulled through. None of us were sure what to say when Momose took us to our new place.
ここですか。
Well, it could be worse. It was an old run-down apartment building that had clearly been built at least 30 years ago.
まあ、条件が条件だし、見つかっただけよしとしてちょうだい。
Yeah, we should actually be quite grateful, in fact.
大丈夫よタクル。見た目はちょっとあれだけど、設備はちゃんとしてるし、それに住めば都って言うじゃない。
Yeah, I mean, be grateful it has a roof, and windows, and curtains. That's actually pretty good.
そうだよタクル兄ちゃん。みんなで一緒にいられるなら少しくらい古くても。
I mean, yeah, it's definitely a fixer-upper.
私も十分素敵なところだと思います。
Everybody was trying to stay positive. But I wasn't worried about the age of the building or the condition of the room.
違うんだよ。そういうことじゃないんだ。
I think they're trying a little bit too hard.
そういうことじゃないって。じゃあタクルは何を気にしてるの？
それは。
やれやれ。昼間っからずいぶんとうるさいと思ったら、何の冗談だこれは。
Wait. The closed door had opened and Kunasato had come out. I should have known there was a catch. This is Kunisato's apartment. Mio's apartment.
久野里さん、どうしてここに？
Yeah, there was always a snag. Kurusu moved between Kunasato and Yuto as she spoke. This was bad. Understatement of the millennium. These two didn't get along. Of course, that was only because Kunasato hated us for no reason.
挨拶なり菓子折りの一つでも持ってくるならまだしも、後から来ておいて 随分な態度だな。
I wonder if you actually bought a box of chocolates when you
後
moved
か
in.
ら？ねえタクル、それどういうことなの？
It means that this living situation is a bit more complicated.
それは
After all.
つまりこの部屋の隣が彼女の部屋っていうか。
Yeah, in other words, we're going to be next door neighbors, it seems. So much for that positive energy, guys.
お隣？
I nodded silently. Kurusu grabbed Yuto's hand and headed for the door. Yeah, I had a feeling.
ユウト、行くわよ。ほら、ウキちゃんも。
のの姉ちゃん。
クルス、行くってどこへだよ。
決まってるでしょ。あんな人の隣だなんて。
Of course, Kunisado feels the exact same way. 'Yamazoe was standing in the center of the room, fidgeting.
ここを出て行ってくれるのはこちらとしても非常にありがたい話だが、行き先はあるのか？
Of course not. Not that you would care either way.
あなたには関係のないことです。
Seeing Kunisado caused the blood to rush to Kurusu's head.
落ち着けよクルス、冷静になれ。
だってタクル、あなただって知ってるでしょ？この人がどういう人か。
Only far too well. But I can tell you what kind of person she isn't. Our enemy.
それは分かってるけど、ここを出たところでその後どうするんだよ。
あなたが住んでたあの車にでも行くわよ。
Yeah, unfortunately it can't fit all of us.
ユウトやウキもいるのにか。
それは。
悪かったわね。でも他になくてさ。
It was a long shot, Momose, but you did your best. Of course, this is a bit of a reckless choice on my part, but we could have always hijacked and crashed at Serika's apartment. Just saying. I mean, it's a terrible idea, but hey, it's an idea. Mose looked a little upset to see how poorly Kurusu and Kunisado got along. But that's just how it is. Only when she saw that did Kurusu let go of Yuto's hand.
のの姉ちゃん、僕たち行くところなくなっちゃうの？
ごめんね。大丈夫よ。私がどうかしてた。
She gently patted Yuto on the head and turned to Kunisado. Looks like you're gonna have to swallow that pride.
でも言っておきますけど、あくまでも隣に住んでるだけですから。タクルやウキに実験とかおかしなことしようとしたら黙ってませんからね。
would that you could have said those words to Sakuma. But oh well.
それはこちらのセリフだ。大勢で騒いだりしたら容赦なく壁を殴りつけるからな。それからドアの外でばったり顔を合わせたりするのもごめんだ。私が廊下に出た時には出てくるんじゃないぞ。
Kurusato turned and walked back down the hall to her own room, her footsteps creaking on the wooden floor.
本当に何なのよ、あの人。
It's best that we leave that one alone. Kurusu stuck her tongue out of the closed door. Oh, there's a first. Was she a little kid? But it was rare to see Kurusu acting like a little kid. In a sense, Kurusato had a unique talent for bringing out that side of Kurusu.
すまないわね。
あ、いいえ、こちらこそすみません。わざわざ面倒見てもらったのに。
あの子もいろいろ事情があるのよ。勘弁してやってちょうだい。
Try being the operative word here. Problems. Only then did I wonder for the first time why Kurusato was so obsessively pursuing the case. She was originally a brain scientist, supposedly, but I doubt she'd tell me if I had asked.
おい、お前ら人に手伝いさせて何のんびりしてんだ。少しは自分たちで運べ。
Oh yeah.
あ、すみません。すぐやります。ほら、タクル。
あ、うん。
Yeah, we have belongings to get. Because of course we do. Once Shinjo and Momose had finished carrying everything in, they left, and we were alone in this dinky little apartment. Kurusu had split up the work for the move, but this wasn't a big room, and we had a lot of people. We couldn't bring in most of the furniture, and even if we did, there'd be no place to put it. In the end, we only bought clothes, daily necessities, and a few mementos, so it wasn't too much work. My internet was set up, so at least I had that. Priorities. Well, at least we made it through the day. Of course, I'm pretty sure that Kurusato is going to complain about Kurusu's singing during cooking. Kurusu stood in the kitchen, filling a pot with water. She put the pot on the burner and turned on the gas.
ご飯、おそばでいいわよね。
Well, that's what we got. So why not?
それ知ってます。引っ越しそばと言うんですよね。
ええ。本当はお隣にも持っていくものなんだけど。
Yeah. Of course, I doubt that Kurusato would appreciate it. Kurusato was our next door neighbor. Even if we did take it, I doubted she'd eat it.
おそば。
ユウトはカレーとかハンバーグとか食べたかったかしら。
おそばでいいよ。
そう、ごめんね。
私手伝います。
Very kind of you, Uki.
ありがとう。それじゃあ食器の用意をしてくれるかしら。それからテーブルを拭いて。
He said he didn't mind sober, but a kid Yuto's age must have wanted to eat something different. He was probably not trying to cause a fuss because of how little money we had. And Yamazo was trying to find her own role in the family. But I think we're being stretched a little thin.
ごちそうさまでした。
お粗末様でした。
We found a place to live, but there was still so much to worry about. I was just trying to survive on my own like I had been in the RV. I would have been fine. But now things were different. We had to survive on our own now, with no one's protection. How long will we be able to keep this up? I had no clear vision for the future. I realized once more how much it meant for Sakuma to take us in. I'll stop ranting, but it's still grates on my nerves.
タクル、大丈夫？ご飯足りた？
あ、うん、もう十分だ。
明日からはもうちょっとちゃんとしたご飯作るからね。
It was edible. I really wasn't worried about that. But I nodded anyway.
それじゃあ、お腹もいっぱいになったことだし、改めまして。
Kurusu sat up straight.
今日からここが私たち家族の家です。
なんだよ、いきなり。
新しい生活にあたって初心表明みたいなものよ。
Starting over.
そんなの別にいらないだろう。
あら、けじめは大切よ。
This was just like Kurusu, though.
さて、新しい生活を始めるにあたって一つだけ約束。
It depends on whether or not we'll be able to keep said promise.
約束？
そう。と言っても前と同じよ。家族の間で隠し事はしないこと。これだけは守ってほしいの。もう二度と家族がバラバラにならないように。
Will you hold yourself to that promise, Nanu Kurusu? I don't think Takuru can go through this a second time.
クルス。
That promise was what led to Takuru leaving Aoba Dorm 6 years ago. It felt like an expression of her resolve to me. She never wanted me to leave her again.
うん、わかった。約束する。
Yeah. Yuto and Uki might be able to keep that promise, but Takuru and Kurusu are another story altogether.
私も約束します。
タクルは？
ああ、約束する。
And so the contract has been sealed. Signed and
よろしい。
delivered.
それじゃあみんな、改めてよろしくお願いします。
お願いします。
Yay. And thus our new life began.
「あら、ユウトったらもう眠そう。そうよね。今日はユウトも頑張ってくれたもんね。
It's been a very exhaustive day.
それじゃあ、お風呂入ったら寝ましょうか。
Does this place even have a bath? Fortunately, as beat up as this apartment was, it had its own bath and toilet. That's good to know. To be fair, there weren't that many public baths left lately. An apartment building without baths and toilets wouldn't make it. I looked at the clock and it was just past 9. Felt like a long day, that's because it was. Living in the same room as other people meant that you couldn't set the pace of your own day. I realized that just over these few hours. I'd lived with others before, but I always had my own personal space. Not anymore. Here, though, I didn't. If I wanted my own space, I'd have to leave. Of course, I couldn't ask for too much right now. And anyway, I felt a kind of peace here. Although I don't think it would be fair to leave that RV trailer all by its lonesome as well, but I would.
タクル、お風呂をお先にいただいたわ。あなたも入ったら？汗かいたでしょ？
あ、僕はいいよ。
ダメよ。そんな汚れた体でお布団へは入らせません。
I used to find Kurusu annoying at times like this. But now, things have changed. Well, at least Yuto doesn't actually have to worry entirely about being in the dark with everyone else here. Then again, the darkness of his own mind is a different tale. But we should be able to sleep comfortably.
二人ともよっぽど疲れてたのね。横になった途端寝ちゃった。
That's a good thing in my book.
うん。
We'd never all slept together on the floor like this before.
なあ、クルス。
大丈夫よ。父さんもいなくなって、この先どう生活していこうって言うんでしょ？
なんで？
Well, that was certainly plucked out of thin air.
タクルの言いたいことくらいわかるわ。だって私はあなたの家族、お姉さんだもの。
クルス。
Yeah, there's no need to push yourself that far.
まだそう呼ぶんだね、私のこと。
But even after everything that's happened, Takuru isn't calling Kurusu by her first name.
Ah.
force of habit.
いいのいいの。ただできればいつかね、元の呼び方に戻ってくれたらいいなってね。
It's never that simple.
ごめん。とにかくね、こうやって家族みんなで力を合わせていけばきっと大丈夫。なんとかなる。私がなんとかしてみせるわ。
Now that is a very tall order.
だから
It was as if she were talking to herself. Having everyone together in that old home had really been important to Kurusu. I realized now that she was probably the one who was most hurt when I left. And also the one who was most nervous now.
家族か。なんでもないよ。おやすみ。
おやすみなさい。
Would we be able to be a family again here? I almost said the words, but it was too embarrassed. But listening to everyone snore next to me brought me a great deal of peace.
タクル。タクルったら起きなさい。
Well, looks like it's morning.
しょうがない。こうなったら。タクル、起きろー
Bats are nocturnal.
やっと起きた。
なんだよ、大声出して。びっくりするだろ。
Sunlight, it burns.
いつまで経って
Pains
も
me so.
あなたが起きないからでしょ。
だからってそんな起こし方。
Huh? Wait, where was Kurusu waking me up? And this room. As if you could have forgotten.
タクル兄ちゃん起きるの遅い。みんなとっくに起きちゃってますよ。
ああ、そっか。
So we're late risers, give us some slack. That's right, we're all living here now. Literally under the same roof.
それにしても、どうせ起こすならもっと優しく起こしてくれればいいだろう。
何言ってるの。最初はやってたわよ。ねえ。
のの姉ちゃん最初はすごーく優しい声だったよ。それでもタクルさんがなかなか起きないから。
Evidently it was 3 versus 1.
それより朝ごはんできるからお布団片付けて用意して。
あ、僕は朝ごはんは。
ダメ。朝ちゃんと食べないと元気出ないんだから。ほらほら。
Yeah, it's never wise to skip out on breakfast. I still wanted to sleep, but she took my futon away from me.
ち。
Oh well. Guess that's that then. Yamazo was looking at us as if she found something strange.
何？
いえ、 そうしてると本当の兄弟みたいだなって。
あら、だって家族だもん。普通のことよ。
家族ですか。
そうよ。もちろんウキちゃん、あなたも。
私も。
Yamazori smiled, embarrassed. Kurusu looked happy to see that way too. To see her that way. After breakfast, I used my Pokecom to look for information on the murders. I've been too busy lately to check, but I was sure there must have been some developments, especially on Ad Channel. I still haven't been able to go to police about Serika. I probably should have told Shinjo already, but I just couldn't figure out why Serika would do something like that. Kurusu had said she'd done it for me, but if that were true, then that basically meant that I was the one who basically murdered Yui and Sakuma. Was it okay to make Serika suffer for that alone? And why did Serika think that that's what I wanted anyway? Well, we're going to have to learn that truth from Serika herself. Was that really what I'd wanted? No, that was impossible.
できた。
Kurusu had been playing with a roll of fabric. Doing some knitting, apparently.
何を作ってたんですか？
カラーボックスのところにカーテンがあった方がいいと思って。ほら、食器とかむき出しだとホコリかぶっちゃうでしょ。それからこっちはドアノブとティッシュのケース。こういうちょっとしたものでもあるだけでお部屋の中が明るくなるでしょ。
Eva the decorator, I see.
はあ、本当ですね。
Kurusu was steadily turning the room into a place to live. I doubt I would have ever thought about any of those things, but it was true that having them here made the room feel much more like home, quote unquote.
私にもできるでしょうか。
And Uki wants to be useful.
もちろんよ。教えてあげるから一緒に作りましょう。
はい。
Yamazori had said we looked like brother and sister, but she and Kurusu looked just like a pair of sisters too. Then there's Yuto.
ユウトは何してるんだ？
勉強、学校の。
見てやろうか。
いいの？
That's the least we can do.
まあ、たまにはな。
There was nothing for me to do here anyway. And
それじゃあ、ここを教えて。
for now, I wanted to treasure this peaceful time. And Yuto will find it enjoyable as well.
何？
なんでもない。
Glad to see you're finding this all so amusing, Kurusu.
なんだよ。
だからなんでもないってば。
Weirdo.
そういえばクルス、学校はいいのか？
Yeah. She is in fact still the student council president. After everything that had happened, then moving on top of it all, we hadn't had time for school. Neither of us had been in a while. Of course, the school was being understanding, but we couldn't skip school forever.
もう何人事みたいに言ってるのよ。それはタクルもでしょ。
That's how it is.
だって僕と違ってクルスには生徒会があるだろ。いつまでも休んでいられないんじゃないか。
生徒会のことは川原くんに任せたから平気よ。どっちにしてももうすぐ任期も終わりだしね。
I wonder if that means that Kawahara might be voted the president next time, then.
それにこの状況で私たちだけが学校に行くわけにもいかないでしょ。
Unfortunately, that is true. You do have a point. It wouldn't be right to go and leave Yuto and Yamazoe behind. But I couldn't send Kurusu on her own either. There was no telling when Serika might come.
ねえタクル。
Or what she might do next.
セリカのことだけど。
Yeah, we're going to have to cross that bridge sooner or later. Hearing her name from another person's mouth made me tense. I didn't want to believe she was the killer, but believe it we must. The way she'd been acting and the way she'd been trying to kill Kurusu, those were both real.
考えてみれば私セリカのこと何も知らないの。
は？何言ってんだよ。クルスだって仲良かっただろ。甘いものが好きでグレープフルーツジュースが好きでちょっと天然入ってて。
No. That was the person that Serika Noe was pretending to be the whole time.
そういうことじゃなくてね。その住んでるところとか両親のこととか。
Well, she may have an apartment, but she never had parents.
確かセリカも地震で怪我したのよね。その時ご両親は？
Yeah, those were the important questions.
それは。
ご両親は生きているのよね。何をしている人？会ったことは？
No, because they never existed.
タクル、あなた子供の頃から知ってるんでしょ？普通それくらい付き合いが長ければ家に行ったことくらいあるものじゃない？
Only in Takuru's mind, Kurusu. Only in his head. I was stunned. Serika and I had been together for years, but I didn't know anything about her parents or her house. They'd never come to the school field day or parent-teacher meetings. She never talked about them and I never brought it up. But they should have at least come up in conversation a few times. I didn't even remember that. In fact, I didn't even have any photos of her from when she was a kid. They don't exist.
少し調べてみないといけないかもしれないわ。セリカのこと。
Well, if we do some digging, we'll be able to spot the contradictions. exposed the truth. November 11th, 2015, Wednesday. That's quite a while.
お邪魔します。
あら、新庄ちゃん、いらっしゃい。
And looks like Shinjo is hanging out at Frisia once again. Katsuko Momose smiled as Takeshi Shinjo came into her office. Here at the wonderful Frisia building.
あらあら、相変わらず陰鬱なオーラ背負ってるわね。たまには気分転換しないと。って言っても、まあ、無理な話よね。
Not his line of work, it's not.
これでも内心密かにタフなハードボイルドに憧れてたりするんですがね。
Well, at least you enjoy your work. That's always something. Shinjo was unconsciously patting his belly with his left hand. He was nursing a nasty upset stomach. That's never good.
ちょうどやってるわよ。
Momose pointed at the TV, where a news show was doing a panel on the murders. You could probably find the same topics on every channel. They're still investigating?
それではここまでの流れをもう一度見てみましょう。
Or at the very least, the pundits are just going over old ground.
渋谷を震撼させていたニュージェネの凶器の再来事件は容疑者逮捕により一旦はピリオドを打たれたものと思われておりました。しかし11月4日、6年前ドキュンパズルと呼ばれた事件が起きた日付と同じ日に再び殺人事件が発生。
At Sakuma's murder.
さらには一連の事件の容疑者として先日逮捕された少年が昨日になり一転して容疑を否認。すべての殺人に対し無罪を主張したという情報が入りました。
Wait, who was arrested?
これにより一部では警察による誤認逮捕の可能性を指摘する声が上がっていますが。
Oh wait, it's suddenly dawned on me. Ito, who would have been arrested over Yui's murder.
もしもこれが誤認逮捕であれば大問題ですね。何せ相手は未成年です。
It wasn't his fault.
それに無実の人間を殺人犯として扱ったわけですから。
Yeah. That's what happens when public opinion turns against you.
すでに一部の人権団体からも非難の声が上がっているようですが。
At least there are some humane people that are on Shinji Ito's side.
そうした声は今後ますます大きくなるでしょうね。
Even though you are part of the system, Mr. Commentator, at least you are supportive of Shinji Ito's predicament. Just like the commentator on the TV had said, the public had already turned against the police. Shinjo and the rest of the force's reputation was in the gutter. No, he'd be lucky if it was just damage to his reputation. At some point he'd probably be asked to resign. Oh. They had to detain Ito for better or worse. But to pin him as the murderer of all the cases...
これで伊藤真二が保釈済みだってことを知れた日にゃ。
That was a step too far, trying to link him to every single murder case.
そう。保釈されたんだ。
That's good news for us, not for Shinjo, however.
ええ、久野里さんが手を尽くしてくれましてね。脳の機能も改善されてきました。
Well, at least he's recovered. After all, without Ito, we wouldn't have been able to connect the dots together. That even if Kurusu was the one to figure out that Serika was the one responsible for everything, Shinji Ito, despite everything that happened to him, did his best to help us out.
問題は、今まで伊藤君本人が堅くなに自分が犯人だと主張してたからこそ一家も取り合っていたんですが、久野里さんから彼が洗脳状態だったという最終報告が出た。
Yes, indeed. A neuroscientist could tell you that his mind had been manipulated.
しかも過去の事件の微細証拠物件と伊藤君の DNA を照らし合わせると、伊藤君を犯人とするには噛み合わない部分が多すぎる。
Microscopic evidence. Yeah. Basically, Serika and Sakuma were trying to frame Ito as the killer. Microscopic evidence is analyzed with tools such as gas, chromatography, and electron microscopes. Primarily used to refer to things like DNA, hair, fingerprints, blood, semen, footprints, and tire tracks left at the crime scene. Microscopic evidence is admissible in a court of law. Edmund Lockhart, born 1877, died 1966, who was known as the Sherlock Holmes of France, formulated Lockhardt's exchange principle, which says that every criminal will both bring something into a crime scene and take something away. This principle became the foundation of modern forensic science.
でも保釈だなんて思い切ったわね。もしことが公になってマスコミがそのことを嗅ぎつけでもしたら、それこそまずいんじゃないの
Well, they couldn't keep him detained forever.
その懸念でしたら当面は大丈夫かと。
という
Well, as we've heard on television, people have been clamoring for his release.
伊藤君はまだ病院に入院中ですから保護観察中に見えるはずです。
Yeah, he still needs medical attention.
ああ。
だいぶ良くなりましたが、まだ脳に異常な負荷がかかっているのは事実です。
Yeah, an unfortunate side effect of Sakuma's mind control device.
異常な負荷ね。
俺には専門的なことはよくわからないんですが、以前はとても正気を保っていられないような数値だったそうで。
No, not after what he was put through. It's amazing he's still functional.
まあ、そんなわけで、これ幸いとばかりに面会謝絶ってことにしてます。
なるほどね。ついでだから新庄ちゃんもちょっと入院してくれば？
ん？
Is that an attempt at humor there?
相当疲れてるみたいよ。休んでないでしょ？
確かに。せめて人間ドックにでも。
Shinjo rubbed his stomach without laughing. His phone went off in his pocket. He took out his phone and looked at the name on the screen.
宮代くんだ。
Huh. Takuru is the one calling.
あら。
もしもし、新庄だが。どうした？何かあったのか？
Seemed like he wasn't going to get that physical anytime soon. Of course, Takuru would have seen the news reports on the internet. Given Ito's condition.
いらっしゃ。お主か。
Glad to see you too. Again, oh wait. Yeah, we keep running into you here since you are the maid waitress of Cafe LAX. Mysterious girl who we never learn the name of. You shall probably be a mystery that will never be solved or explained. The eternal unknown factor in the world of ChäoS Child. But on that note, that will bring an end to this exceptionally long episode of this Let's Play. And when we return, adventurers, we shall need to ponder our next moves with dealing with Serika Noe, who is still at large. As always, adventurers, until next we meet.